We are now in the second international break of the season, come way too early, of course, but Arsenal will be spending it at the top of the table after their 2-0 win over West Ham and Liverpool's loss to Chelsea. Now, it is still so early on in the season, and of course, now after Crystal Palace lost to Everton, there are no more unbeaten teams in the league. So Arsenal still got their Invincibles tag, but enough about that. Yeah, so like I say, I think it's just 7 games gone, but Liverpool are not the force they were last season. City have had a couple of slip-ups too. Chelsea maybe not hit the levels expected of them. Is it Arsenal's title to lose already?
Oh, come on, Ben. Far too early to be saying that. Is it Arsenal's title to lose? Absolutely not. No, it is very much Arsenal's title to win, but it's not Arsenal's title to lose. No, it's a long way to go. It's lovely to be sitting where they are, and I think it's massively impressive for them to be sitting where they are as well, given the starts of the season they've had, fixtures wise, injuries wise, bedding in a load of new players. To come through all that at this stage and be sitting top of the table, I think deserves huge amount of credit. And of course, they're only one worldy free kick away from being unbeaten at this point as well. So look, they'll be very happy. Well, I know they're very happy with how they've started the season and where they are during a period of acclimatization for a lot of players. But I think it's definitely too early to say it's theirs to lose. There's still a lot of very good teams in this league. Liverpool is still a very good team, just had a difficult week. And it just shows how quickly the sort of landscape can change and how people are viewing things. So no, definitely not theirs to lose, but I would say it's definitely there for them to go and win. And fingers crossed they can do that.
Yes, maybe I was slightly premature with that statement, but you see Arsenal at the top of the table, you can't help but get a little bit carried away, even at this early stage. And especially, the win over West Ham, who were a bogey team at the Emirates over the past couple of years. And they, right from the start, you could see that Arsenal, they were going for it. We saw that new look midfield, that very attacking midfield from Arteta, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, goals from Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka, 2 new milestones for the latter. His 100th Premier League goal involvement on his 200th Premier League appearance. Also, just the second Arsenal player to score on his 200th Premier League game after the great Thierry Henry. And it's still so hard to believe that this is the same 19-year-old kid, obviously not 19 anymore, but the same 19-year-old kid who missed that crucial penalty in the Euros final. He's just come on leaps and bounds since then. He's still going from strength to strength, and he's still just 24 years old. Like there's still so much more to come from him, isn't there?
There is, yeah. And he's actually got that drive, to make sure there's a lot more to come from him as well. He's not going to rest on his laurels. He's not sitting there just happy with 100. He'll want to go a lot higher than that, and I'm sure he absolutely will. It was a nice moment for him to get that. It's 1 in 2 goal involvement since breaking into the team, and when you think at the start of that sort of run, of quite a lot of those first 200 games, we've kind of been playing at left back and left wing back and all those sort of positions. So he's just a remarkable player, remarkable talent, a player to cherish, for everyone at Arsenal to be really proud of. And I always go back to this story. I've told it many times. I've probably told it to you, but I was over in Germany when he scored his first Arsenal goal in the Europa League. They played Frankfurt, and he scored his first Arsenal goal. And after the game, I mean, you'll know how it works. A few of us had gone down to the mix zone to speak to some players, and Arsenal were going to bring Bukayo Saka out. It was going to be the first time he'd ever spoken, done a sort of mix zone with a load of journalists. And Arsenal said, look, he's 17. Just be careful with him. Don't just really sort of start throwing things left, right, and centre at him. Just, be gentle, basically. And I'm fine, yeah, of course, we're just going to talk about the goal. But the way he strode out then in the middle of this big huddle of journalists, and there was no fear, so many times you talk to 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds after games, and they're really nervous. They can't really get their words out. They're just a bit daunted by the fact they've got a load of microphones stuck in their face and all that sort of stuff. But he was just so different to anyone sort of that age that I'd spoken to before, just how strong he was, how there was just no nerves. He just took everything in his stride, and the way he answered the question, I just stood there thinking, this kid's different. I've just not seen anything like this kid before. How he handles himself and everything about him, just tell he was different all the way back then. I could never have predicted what he's gone on to achieve, but you knew there was a talent there on the pitch, but you knew there was something sort of in his head as well that maybe made him stand out from a lot of other players. So it's fantastic to see what he's done.
It's quite interesting on that point where you say he's got no fear, because we've seen that with quite a few recent Arsenal Hale End graduates. I mean, Miles Lewis-Skelly, we always say he's fearless. Max Downman's just 15 years old. He's got no fear at all. I think I saw the Declan Rice story where he said that Max Downman FaceTimed him just from school. And Declan Rice was saying, when I was 15, I'd be too scared to even talk to a full-time professional. Do you think that's something that Arsenal really work on in Hale End, trying to, make these players that fearless even at that younger age?
And it is. I'm not sure really it's about to make them fearless, but they want to make them confident. Really, really confident. Per Saka is huge on that. He talks about, I think is the phrase, and I've got to get this right. I've forgotten. It's like strong young gunners. I think is his sort of phrase around the academy. That's what he wants to build. It's not just building footballers and players for the Arsenal first team. He wants to build strong young gunners, and that's so important to him and the whole ethos of how Hale End works. And he'll always tell that to you when you talk to him. He knows that a lot of those players aren't going to go on and succeed in football. They're not going to go and succeed in Arsenal, but he wants to make sure that whatever happens to them, they go out into the wider world or into the down the leagues in football, and they're strong and they're confident and they're ready to cope with whatever's thrown at them. Sorry. So I think a big part of that, these sort of players that we're seeing when they do come into the first team at Arsenal, is because of how Per Saka and the coaching staff at Hale End have moulded them and tried to build them up and be these sort of confident youngsters that we're seeing.
Yeah, just when you said that about Per Mertesacker being huge on that, I just thought, yeah, Per Mertesacker is just huge in general.
Yes.
Good or BFG. I won't say the actual full phrasing here, but anyway,
No.
yes. So, yeah, I mean, we also spoke briefly about the new look midfield that Arteta selected from the first whistle. We saw Rice operating as the number 6, which we've not seen too much of, and then yes, Odegaard and Eze, I think it was, alongside him. We didn't see much of that because of the Odegaard injury, which we will of course talk about in a bit more detail. But is that something against maybe, low block defenses that you want to see more of? Arteta really, going for that, all out, not quite all out attack, but having Rice sitting deepest and then having those two attacking number 8s either side of him. Is that something you want to see more of against those low block teams?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. It's like I felt a bit when I saw that lineup the morning of the game. Lots of people have been saying to me, "Oh, we're going to see this lineup," and I was like, "No, Mikel's never going to do that. This is Mikel Arteta. Of course, he's not going to do that." Which shows how much I know, because obviously I rocked up at the game a couple of hours later and he'd done exactly that. But I have to admit, when I saw it, it was one of those things where you look at it and think, look, on paper that looks really exciting and a lot of fun. In reality, I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be really unbalanced. We've seen it. Mikel did it before. I think on occasion, like he'd put Smith Rowe into one of those positions and playing with Odegaard, and it never quite worked. And I go back to the Lee Carsley when he was in charge of England that game, when he decided to put Rice on his own as a 6 and then just throw everyone else, all the attackers on at the same time. I think it was when they lost at home to Greece, and it just looked so disjointed, and there was just wide open spaces across the pitch, And when I saw it on the team sheet on Saturday when it was announced, I did worry a little bit about, as much as that looks really exciting, is it actually going to work in reality, or are Arsenal going to leave themselves wide open here and Declan Rice have to do about 5 people's jobs, which he probably can because he's Declan Rice, but still. But obviously we didn't get a long enough sort of sample size to see if it was going to work. But I did think as soon as Zubimendi came on, Arsenal maybe looked a bit more balanced and a little bit more in control of that game. So I'm not sure. It's something I would definitely like to see plenty of times in game if Arsenal need to chase games, and you've got that option. I just wonder from the start. I think if you are going to do it, you really, really have to pick and choose the game to do it in, because there is definitely the prospect of leaving yourself a little bit unbalanced and very much open against some teams. So I thought it was an interesting choice from Mikel, and it again showed this whole handbrake narrative and all that is not really correct at all. So I thought it was interesting to see he did it from the start. I would have liked to have seen it for longer to see exactly how it would have worked. But I do wonder if there might be a few sort of drawbacks to it.